All right. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today, we are going to go through which artifacts to pick and which to not pick for the anniversary artifact selector. As of this recording, it will be released tomorrow. So, what other time than today would be perfect to be prepared? Because, as a university student, we all know that you do make these decisions and start thinking about it one day before it actually happens. Um, I'm kidding. But let's get right into it without any further ado, because I hate long intros. Starting off in the S tier. The S tier I define as these are just some really good picks. Why, you may ask? Because essentially these picks are kind of almost like best in slot pretty much for an entire class. Like, these have such a universal use within that class that they will work on multiple different characters. We have Elbrus Ritual Sword, which is the counter artifact. It makes you counterattack every single time, well, not every single time, but it has a percentage to trigger a counterattack every single time they attack somebody who's not the character wearing it. So essentially, AoE attacks will have a very high chance of proccing this artifact. You pair it on Landy, you pair it on Morts, you pair it on anybody really who wants to counterattack a lot, essentially. And this is a night exclusive. And usually paired with a counter set. So if they attack you, you might counterattack. If they attack someone else, you might counterattack. Just counterattacks galore. Cannot recommend this more. Second choice, we have Sigurd Scythe. Sigurd Scythe grants you lifesteal, essentially, when you're below 50% and increased attack. Essentially, like, this is a warrior exclusive one, and it's good on anybody really who wants to lifesteal, and then you can kind of free up a set. You don't have to build lifesteal as a set. You can build like more damage whatsoever. This is really good on Edward, and it's amazing for warriors that scale off of attack, since it grants attack. Many people, I'm assuming you've already watched other tier lists, but this tier list is going to be a bit more focused for beginners. But essentially, other people compare this one a lot to the Golden Rose artifact, and the Golden Rose artifact is amazing and works similarly. However, it grants extra damage and not extra attack. So people who doesn't scale off of attack, then Golden Rose is probably better. An example would be Designer Lilibet or Lionheart Sermia, who scale off of defense and not attack. However, Sigurd Scythe works on Ravi, it works on Emil Bologna, it works on Edward, it works on so many people. It's such a worth artifact. It's still such a great top tier pick. If you are interested in building any of those types of characters, Sigurd Scythe will be your pick. Next up, we have Abyssal Crown. Abyssal Crown essentially grants you a chance to stun the enemy. It is amazing. It is contested. Mage pick is all mage artifacts are going to essentially be compared to Tagel's ancient spellbook. It's an artifact that grants you 2 souls. And enables a lot of cleave and a lot of playstyles. However, that is a 4-star artifact. But one of the only mage artifacts that, in my opinion, contests that is Abyssal Crown. It is amazing on AoE characters. I put it on, I think I have 3 of them, and I have one on example like Emela Arminta, with those that increase stun chance. Anyone who AoEs, really, you can have it on Polydus for some cheeky stuns, and overall it's a really strong artifact for control when you have a mage on your team. So definitely worth picking up if you like. You could put it on Solitary of the Snow, on Ida, just in general, you know, if you like control and AoE with mages. So S tier, you cannot go wrong with any of these artifacts. They're such safe picks, and multiple characters can use these, and you will get so much value out of them. Next up, we go to the A tier. The A tier are artifacts that are very versatile. A lot of characters can use them. However, they are not a must, and there are alternatives, but they are so good, and honestly, you also will get a lot of value out of these. That's how I thought about it anyways. Rod of Amaryllis is a Soul Weaver artifact, and it essentially heals the lowest HP character on your team whenever you use a non-attack skill. This grants extra healing to people who already heal a lot. You can put it on Tamarin and she will heal like like the PvE goddess she is. She will heal even more. You can put this on Diane. You can put this on just essentially anybody who has 2 non-attack skills as a Soul Weaver. Really, really strong, just extra healing. It is so good. Next up, we have Song of Stars. It is a 5-star Ranger artifact, and this makes it so that you have a very, very high chance of landing a target debuff on your target when you use a single target skill. Amazing for Iceria, Furious, and what the target debuff essentially does is that it boosts your damage. So it enables a lot of one-shots on hunts when you don't really have the gear already. This one will compensate for that and make the gear requirements substantially lower. And let me tell you that, substantially lower. It's just overall a really good artifact and will help you in PvE so much that I have to put it up here. So good, you cannot go wrong with picking this. And yeah. Next, we have Wind Rider. Wind Rider is really, really good. I don't think a lot of people talks about this one. So assassins, you know, are very often very high damage, kind of like glass cannons. They want to get in and out quickly, and as soon as they quote unquote blow their load, they're usually very susceptible to getting bursted down. However, Wind Rider increases your attack by, I think it's like 20% plus. And also grants you the passive that if you take out another unit, if you kill another unit, you will gain stealth. A lot of assassins, like maybe Assassin Sid, or, you know, like he said, they gain like a skill nullifier or like a evasion buff. But that's not always enough. So having stealth gives you just so much protection. And honestly, this can be put on most assassins, and because it's just such an overall good one. I use it on my Kisei. To gain that beautiful stealth and make her very difficult to take down unless they have AoE. Next up, we have Border Coin, which is a warrior artifact with Sermia on it. It's looking so cool, and essentially it increases speed and attack each time you do a non-attack skill and stacks up to 3 times. I use this on Sermia herself. It's amazing for her, but also can be used on Conqueror Lilias to help her cycle even quicker, because she is built with a lot of speed, and helping her gain even more speed is going to really help her cycle and just kind of outpace your opponent. It is a very strong artifact, and I think those are the main 2 uses for Border Coin. Some might argue that Border Coin would be put down in B tier instead, but I decided at the end of the day to put it here in A tier. But ask me on a different day and it might be B tier, but it is, however, a really good artifact that I have 2 copies of and I use constantly. Next up, we have Shepherd of the Hollow. Shepherd of the Hollow is honestly probably your go-to thief artifact. It grants extra damage when you lower, so people who are built on a lifesteal set, for example, will heal even more when they're low and deal even more damage, hence healing more, and it grants evasion as well, 20%. It is such a strong artifact. Amazing on Kaiou himself, on a Remnant Violet, you know, anybody who just wants to dodge and deal extra damage. And really anyone who can be built on a lifesteal set as well. Next up, we have Shimadra's Staff. This one grants, I think it's 20% effect resistance to you and your allies, and also grants extra healing. This one is amazing on units like Destina, who already has high ER, to just really make her a wall being unable to be debuffed. It is amazing on Tamarin and people who heal a lot, because it essentially makes them heal even more, and this works on everything. I personally have it on my Rowana to make her not be debuffed as much, and her heals will just go out of this world with this artifact. It is so good, and I do recommend this one if you don't have a healer artifact. If you put this in contrast to Rod of Amaryllis, this one is a heal more artifact. It will people who already heal, it will essentially boost their heals, while Rod of Amaryllis enables heals from people who do not usually heal. and gives a little bit of an extra boost. Overall, I think Shimadra stuff is good for people that can use it quite frequently. But yeah. Next up, we have Celestine. As you can tell, I think Soul Weaver artifacts are really good and strong, but here we have Celestine. I am a bit unsure about Celestine, if it will be available or not. I think so, because I think it used to be tied to Diane, who's a limited character, and limited artifacts and characters will not be available on this ticket. However, nowadays I think Unfading Memories is the one that is tied to Diane, so I'm not sure if this one is just a floater meaning that it isn't tied to any character, and that also makes them more difficult to obtain, because the only way you can get them then is from random pools or powder shop, since they're not tied to a character banner. An example of that is Rod of Amaryllis, is a floater. But Celestine is really good for Soul Weavers that have high turns and can be built on counter. Like Soul Weaver would be maybe like Ruel, because every time you use your S1 you will essentially heal. And when you've used your S1, S3 and S2 on some Soul Weavers, then you have nothing to do then but to S1, then you can still make the downtime, quote unquote, on those characters less of a downtime and actually make them useful. It's really good. You can build counter to Stina with Celestine, and overall it's a really good artifact that is very often overlooked, in my opinion. So if you have all the others that I've mentioned so far, Celestine is not a bad pick. Next up, we have Secret Art Storm Sword, and we have Auntie Celine on that artifact, and it is of course tied to Celine. This pushes you up whenever somebody takes the enemy has a non-attack skill, and it has a chance of granting you extra like attack buff. And it is really amazing. It goes not against, but for those assassins who want to basically cut the enemy off with their CR, with that CR push it grants. So Celine is perfect for this. Just really make sure she pushes herself all the way up to the front when she counterattacks. It's amazing on Winter, and overall just assassins that want to cut. And I think this is an artifact that as well has a lot of value in the sense that I think a lot of future characters might use this as well, because it's very valuable. Next up, we have Double-Edged Decrescent. This one also is kind of like Shepherd of the Hollow. A lot of people prefer Shepherd of the Hollow. However, this one grants the caster a chance to counter attack whenever they evade. So this one is also really good. I have this one on Revenant Violet. Just a really strong overall artifact, but I would say that Shepherd of the Hollow is probably a little bit more versatile in its usage. However, I think Double-Edged Crescent, when it is needed, then it does its job better. But none of them, like both of them, you can't go wrong by picking them, I think. Uberius' Truth is also a little bit of a, is it A tier, is it B tier? But however, it essentially, whenever you do a single target attack, the enemy will take extra damage based off of your maximum attack. So people like old Huayang would use this. That would make her extremely broken. And we have Arunka, for example, and just overall you can use it on Luna too. This one is like Celestine. I think it used to be tied to Luna, but now it's not. Now I'm actually not sure if this one is available, because Luna, I think she her new artifact is god, what is it called? The one that grants critical hit damage. However, if this is available, then like I said, it's a little bit of a question mark on Celestine and Uberius' Truth. However, this one, very high attack units that you want extremely high attack on can use this, and it's a warrior exclusive. Next up, we have Rihanna and Luciella. It's a RNG Fiesta. It has a chance whenever you take a turn after, to grant an extra turn. People like Ran and Piera, who have like an extra attack built into their kits, have more chances of proccing this. And honestly, sometimes it's one of those artifacts that it might not do anything for you, or it might just win you the game. Pick this if you like that playstyle. Next up, we have the B tier. The B tier I define as artifacts that are good and can be used on multiple people, but essentially they can be replaced by other artifacts, but they are usually good on multiple people, and some might have them as best in slots, but they're not as versatile as the A tier or as like important. We have Sacred Tree Branch, who's amazing on Sharoon. It grants you effectiveness. Any Soul Weaver that has a lot of debuffs and needs to land them will benefit greatly from this one. We have Alexa's Basket, who is essentially only used these days on Arbiter Vildred and T-Sirin. T-Sirin has had kind of a resurgence these days after the Worlds. Arbiter Vildred is not that used anymore due to all the counters, but however, with this on him and it procs, it has a chance of proccing, like not proccing, but giving you greater attack buff and critical hit chance buff. And when it procs, it's amazing. You can surprise people by having this on key save, for example, and overall it still has a bunch of uses. Merciless Glutton is essentially mostly used on, I think, Jacko these days. It is her best in slot, many may argue. However, there are a lot of other artifacts that she can use, like Portrait of the Saviors and her own artifacts. This is by no means a must, but it is very, very nice to have. Samsara Prayer Beats, a lot of people use this on Apocalypse Ravi. It essentially grants extra damage on single target attacks and makes you take less damage from single target attacks. It can also be used on Arunka. This can be used on a lot of single target focused warriors, but there are also better options. And but this one you can just slap on any single target warrior and it will work wonders still. So it's not a bad pick at all. The B tier is not bad by any means. It's just not as strong because these are like the cream of the crop. The S tier and the A tier are just overall really, really good choices. The B tier are solid choices that are a little bit more niche or specified or are somewhat outclassed, but these are very, very good to have. And the C tier are, we'll get to that. Ancient Dragon's Legacy is essentially a counter to Lua. It is mostly used on Mort or Lilias, Red Lilias. It is really, really strong on them. If you plan on building one of them, this could be worth using. However, I would say that Mort is probably better used with Elbrys Ritual Sword, which is why it's down here. It's a little bit more character specific to those two. We have Time Matter. I use this on Vivian for more consistent one-shot runs. You can use this. I used this for the longest time on top model Luluka. It essentially decreases your cooldowns by 1 turn after you kill somebody. And you can, on those two, you can just cycle over and over with like no cooldowns at all. But not a lot of people use this, to be honest. We have Goblet of Earth, who is very character specific. It's only really used on Pyra, and it's probably her best in slot. However, Pyra can be used with other artifacts such as Rihanna and Luciella up here. She can be used with the free artifact from the event, Music Box, and overall, it's really good for her. So if you're like a Pyra stan and you want the best for her, then Goblet of Earth is probably going to be your pick. The same can be said with Spear of a New Dawn for Senya. Honestly, I don't really know if it's even worth playing Senya without this artifact. That's how good it is, but it is only good on Senya. It deals, helps you deal more. It's essentially like Rocket Punch artifact. It deals more damage when you have high attack, and Senya is built with lots of high attacks, or very high attack, I should say. Little Queen's Huge Crown is essentially probably like Arunka's best artifact. Other than that, I don't think it's really used for somebody else, but if you love Arunka, then this is probably going to be her best in slot. But Portrait of the Saviors and Samsara Prayer Beats and Arunka can use a lot of other artifacts, but this is her best one. But are you starting to see the pattern, kind of? Like, these are like best in slot for some characters, but essentially they're kind of locked to that character and you won't see a lot of usage. The B tier is just simply outclassed by another artifact, but they're not bad by any means. Glory Wings has kind of the same syndrome. Circus Fantasia is probably, a lot of people would argue, the best in slot for Conqueror Lilias. It grants effectiveness. However, Conqueror Lilias can use a bunch of other artifacts as well, and this is not a must. Etiquette Scepter is a little bit of an RNG fiesta. It has a chance, I don't know if it's 100% actually, if it's maxed out, but unless you're a whale, then you're probably not gonna have this maxed out, but it has a chance of decreasing your cooldowns by 1 turn. It's used on Angel of Light, Angelica Angel of Light. And when it procs, it can be disgusting. Sometimes it doesn't proc and it's just awkward. A little bit like Rihanna and Luciella in that aspect, but kind of for mages. It's not, if you have all of the above or are not interested in any of the above, this is not a bad pick. It's not a bad pick. Rise of a Monarch is good. It grants a barrier to the lowest ally whenever you take your turn, so it makes you into kind of a mini version of Fallen Cecilia. Barriers can be detrimental right now that we have so many anti ones like DJ Bazaar. I was gonna say Ning Ning, but nobody uses Ning Ning these days. Aureus is just such a good artifact for Knights, so a lot of the time you're gonna want to pick Aureus instead of Rise of a Monarch. But if your tank already has, or if your knight already has an inbuilt Aureus like Crimson Armin, for example, or Troublemaker Creuset, Arrowwell, this could pretty much, be used then. We have Spatial Temporal Fan, which essentially grants stealth to the highest attack person on your team. It is a ranger artifact, so it is always going to go up against Guiding Light, which is a limited artifact, otherwise it would have been here in the S tier. If you don't have Guiding Light, this could help compensate for that, but it will leave your ranger vulnerable to getting sniped out. I use this on Lua because I don't have enough Guiding Lights, but it works wonders when it pops. Like, it can hide your priority target if they don't have, if they're not a ranger, then it can hide them. We have Bloodstone. Bloodstone turns your ranger into a healer. You need to have high damage. You can put this mainly on Landy. It's used for a few abyss floors, but not really in PvP. But those floors, it's almost a must if you have those like Daggersy card challenges and etc. This is more of a late game, and I like very end game, I would not prioritize this as a new player, but it is very strong nonetheless. Holy Sacrifice gives you, you want this plus 30, you want this fully imprinted, it gives you a chance to revive, but at fully imprinted maxed out, it will guarantee you a revive as a tank. It's mostly used on Arrowwell, it can be used on Crow, and Eula as well, when you want to revive with low HP and just burst the enemy down. And Arrowwell is used on to bait out Straze. But this is really good, but I wouldn't say that, like, those people can use other artifacts as well, but this is probably, like, this can be used to make some advanced cheeky plays. Alensinox's Wrath, however, that one is, it's not bad, but it's one of those, it's kind of like Black Hand of the Goddess, I would say. It gives you extra crit chance, so it kind of compensates for bad gear and kind of helps you out that way. However, there are just overall better artifacts, and the same goes for Black Hand of the Goddess. We have Misha. It gives hit chance and critical hit damage. A lot of rangers want to use just Guiding Light. I have this on my Pavel. I put this one on him because on my ML Pavel, because essentially, like, this is good on rangers that you want to like take your one turn, and if you don't need any more turns than that. It's just boosts your damage, and it's pretty decent for doing that. But like I said, like, Guiding Light is just gonna give you so much protection, but this one is, I wouldn't recommend picking this one up unless you have everything else you want, but it's not a bad pick. Spirit's Breath will decrease your cooldowns when you use a non-attack skill. So it's mostly been used on auxiliary lots, but it could be used on Luluka. It's not a bad pick either. It's just not the best, really. But if you are going to use auxiliary lots, which nobody really does anymore, then this is your guard zero to just constantly push up a carry. Next up, we have the C tier. The C tier artifacts have a few uses, but are mostly outclassed by others. They can be used, however, they're just usually you just want something else, but these could be spicy picks. For Dux Noctis couldn't get used for ML Pavel, but that's pretty much the only one who would ever use this, but for him it is really good. But is it really worth picking an artifact only for one character? If you're gonna do that, then make sure that that artifact is so unmatched and in power and that you really, really, really love that unit so much and you... But if you are doing that, then I'm sure this tier list is probably not very helpful to you because you already know what you're doing. What are you doing here? Leave a sub and get out. No, I'm kidding. We have Unseen Observer, which is good for granting souls for Flan. However, Ranger Artifact Flan can be used on other, but this is probably the best for Flan and Flan only. I don't think... I can't think of anybody else who would use this. Doctor's Bag cleanses 1 debuff and heals the team, but it has a hefty 2-turn cooldown, and you can't really... It tends to proc when... you know, a lot of people that already have cleanses, when they use that, then this artifact, why would you use this instead of like Rod of Emeraldis or whatever? But on Moon Bunny Dominial, this can be used, and a few other Soul Weavers, but usually the other Soul Weaver artifacts that we talked about earlier is better. We have Idol's Cheer, who pushes up the ally with the highest attack whenever your Soul Weaver gets hit. This one can be used on Ruel or Maid Chloe to just push up your carry. Very sturdy Soul Weavers. It's not really used that much in this meta because there's so much damage, but it can be pretty good, especially on Maid Chloe, I would say, because in the end, when you keep when there's only her left and you keep attacking her, this artifact will push herself up and then she can revive everybody, and it's you've probably seen it before if you haven't already. But it's not a bad artifact, but is it really worth choosing over the other ones? Like, again, this one is probably only good for those two, mostly Maid Chloe. So then, and Maid Chloe can use the other ones just as effectively. So this is just a very specific flavor pick. We have Dignus Orb. Only ones that really use it is Top Model Luke and Vivian, but why would you use this one instead of Time Matter? It grants a shield based off of your attack. And it is a pretty damn massive shield, I have to admit. But unless you're like a top model Ludica stan like I am, I probably wouldn't pick this one over all of these other amazing artifacts. Touch of Rekos is a little bit like Doctor's Bag. It grants a little bit of healing every time you're attacked, but can only be procced once per turn, I think. Just overall grants a little bit of extra healing against AoE attacks, I would say, but really use Idol's Cheer instead of this or just any of the other artifacts. Guardian Ice Crystals is just better. Crown of Glory. I think the only one who uses this is Emil Crow, Last Rider Crow. Takes away souls whenever they do an AoE attack, so it's just to counter AoE basically. Durandal pushes you up whenever you get attacked. Again, you could use this on like Ravi, I suppose, but like, why would you use this when you can use other artifacts? Last Tea Time grants extra damage on AoE attacks that targets everybody. Again, why would you use this? But it does deal more damage for AoE. You could use this on like Fire Tenebria, for example. But you could use this on like Cleave Ida, I suppose, but you know, the other ones probably do what you want to accomplish a bit better. Noble Oath, not really used on many people either. I wouldn't recommend picking that one up. Stella Harpa, every time you attack, you cleanse a debuff. You can use this when you have like a counter-attacking Soul Weaver. You could use this on Elena, but really, why would you use this one instead of like Celestine, for example, if you have a counter build? We have Twilight Calamity. It is one of those kind of gear compensating ones. It grants critical hits rate to all your allies and also effectiveness. Not really used on anybody, or not in best in slot on anybody, but can be used on everybody. Swear of Inferno is Bihu's best in slot, but who uses Bihu? If you do, you probably have the other event artifact from the Nadalon Monk. This one is really good, but you can use that free one, and it's pretty much almost just as good. Scroll of Shadows is primarily only used by Arya. I would say maybe Milim-ish, but who would use that on Milim, to be honest? It's better to just use, in my opinion, Bastion of Hope, which you can buy pretty much for free from the guild shop. If you have like this monstrous gear, then I suppose you can make use of Scroll of Shadows. Snow Crystals you could put on Shu, and it gives you a chance to evade a critical hit. However, just you could use Lethe's artifact on Shu. There's so many other ones that are just better for her, but it's not by any means bad. The C tier aren't really bad artifacts, but they kind of have that, why would you use this when you can use that, or they're only for one specific character, and it's not even that good for that specific character, as you can tell. Sword of Judgment gives you a chance to extra or proc another S1 when you do a, I think it's only a single attack, but I'm not sure if it has to be an S1. Only really used on like Kiris and maybe Fire Litica for challenge floors in Abyss. Sword of Summer Twilight is pretty much only used by villain, but you can just use a bunch of other artifacts, really. Again, why would you use this? Pure White Trust is also really just used on Zahak. Grants critical hit damage, but you usually want to put Symbol of Unity on him to really just kind of counter evasion units. But I suppose if you wanted to use Zahak as a resource reduction unit, then this one would probably be better than Symbol of Unity. But Symbol of Unity is just so versatile, it grants flat extra damage and hit chance. Probably want to use that. But if you want to use that one on somebody else, Symbol of Unity, then this one you can put on Zahak and it will be his best in slot. An offer you cannot refuse is overall not really the best at all, but it grants armor pattern and extra damage. But like I said, use Guiding Light or just any other artifact, really. But this one, if you have it, you can put it, and it's nice if you have nothing else to put on a ranger. The D tier are just really, the C tier is I wouldn't really recommend, but if you have everything above or if you have a very specific unit that wanted one of these, then I suppose you could make it work. They have a usage, but the D tier really aren't really used at all. We have Creation and Destruction, which has the most overpowered effect in the entire game that resets your S3 cooldown, but really the chance of that proccing is going to be so insignificantly low that it's never going to happen when you need it. Bastion of Purusha, the immunity for the highest attack is pretty nice, but like Aureus or just any other artifact, please. All of these are just kind of bad, like honestly, or they have such niche usage that I would never recommend picking them. You have like Cradle of Life could be for like Ancient Inheritance, but why would you pick an artifact for only Ancient Inheritance that is only comes around every so often, you know? Don't pick these. Do yourself a favor. Avoid these. We have like Violet's artifact. You could just use Moonlight Dreamblade and it's just gonna do a better job on the Bastion. Like, why would you ever pick this one? If you pick any of these and make use of them, you're probably so endgame that you know exactly what you're doing and don't really need this anyways. This turned out to be quite a long video, I feel like. But overall, so just to summarize, S tier, if you don't know what to pick one of these. If you have a bunch from the club, like, you know. The A tier, very, very solid choices. B tier, a little bit more flavor picking. When probably pick these when you know a little bit more about what you're doing and what you want to accomplish. The C tier is, please this is even more so if you have something, a very specific kind of mechanic in mind. While the D tier, just do yourself a favor. If you love yourself, don't pick these, okay? Respect yourself enough to walk away from this toxic situation of D tier. But for now, if you enjoyed or found anything of this helpful, please be sure to like the video and subscribe for more content to support the channel. I've just recently started getting into Epic 7 videos and I tend to focus on that and do a lot more in the future. So if you're interested in that, or if you just generally want to support me, then please leave a sub. I would very much appreciate that, and comment down below which one will you be choosing. Oh, also disclaimer, I don't know if I said this, but golden rolls will not be available, since when the general rule for selectors is that you cannot select artifacts and characters that were released within 6 months, which is unfortunate because the golden rose is a really good artifact, but that's why it's not here. But for now, take care, and I will see you guys next time. And be sure to tell me down, like I said, in comments down below, which one will you be choosing. And if you have any questions, feel free to just drop a comment and I will do my best. I read all of the comments and I try to respond to all of them as well. So for now, take care, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.